If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, we'll get started.
Okay, great. Hey, folks. My name's Ellie Shane. I'm the Systems and Data Manager at USC's Neighborhood Data for Social Change. Emily may have just said this, but we are a project of the USC Lesk Center for Real Estate, which is one of the research centers in USC's Policy School.
Okay, guys, so we're going to get started with a brief interactive poll just to kind of get your creative juices flowing and then to get people more familiarized with kind of the data we'll be working with. So if we want to go, so you can scan this QR code if you want to just check it out on your phone, or you can type in that web browser and join using the code, and then we can navigate back to the web browser to go ahead and see that. We'll give everyone another second to join. Okay, folks online are good. We'll go ahead and switch back to that Menti platform. Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys, so much. So as of 2022, what age group accounted for the largest proportion of homeowners in the US? We'll give everyone a second to answer this. Also, just want to take a second to plug the source. This is Dowell Myers, who we all heard from and loved today. Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and show the answer. It looks like you want to click. Beautiful. Okay, just starting off with a little easy one, an icebreaker. But yeah, the 55 through 64 age group did account for the largest proportion of homeowners in the US. Okay, one more. As of 2022, what percentage of homeowners in LA County identified as Hispanic? Okay, so we'll go ahead and show the answer for this one. So it looks like 16 people chose 2022.4, but actually 48% of homeowners in LA County identify as Hispanic. And this is from the 2022 State of Hispanic Homeownership. And we'll just do one more. This is just more open-ended to kind of see what people are working with. So if you could just go ahead and enter a few words about what data set you use most frequently in your day-to-day work. Okay, amazing. This is super interesting to see. Big fans of the ACS data in here. So, okay, and then we'll just go ahead and move back to the presentation and get started. Thank you guys for participating in that. Okay, so today we're just going to give you a quick overview about NDSC, a little bit more about our work, and then we'll move through a case study about the Regional Recovery Hub and how we use data for regional collective action. We'll give a brief example of a data story, and then we will move into a case study that we did alongside the CRCD for the South LA All-In Community Development Index. We'll wrap it up with a brief interactive training that you guys can either do on your devices or follow along up here. And then we'll move to a Q&A. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Ellie, to kind of take us through the presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. So we are here today to talk to you all about Neighborhood Data for Social Change, which again is a project of the USC Lesk Center at the School of Public Policy. So at its core, NDSC is a free online information system for folks to learn about their communities and make data-informed decisions. The platform does cover Los Angeles County. We'll do a little training on the mapping portal later, as Em said, but we do have over 200 variables across 10 different policy areas. Just a little bit of background about NDSC. It was founded in October of 2017, so it's just about to turn 6 years old in a couple of weeks. And even before we launched, we went through a 5-year planning process where we engaged a bunch of different stakeholders. So community-based organizations, banks, local government, academic shops, the Federal Reserve, to talk about if a neighborhood data portal would be useful in LA, and if so, what are some of the different types of things that it should include. And some of the kind of core values that came out of that are really making data easy to understand and easy to use so that you don't need some sort of, advanced degree to be able to use this data platform. Another thing that was really uplifted is using data to tell stories. So you'll see here on the slide, one of the kind of programs that we have is this data storytelling program. We've written over 50 different data stories with local community partners talking about their neighborhoods and the issues that they face and the work that they're doing. And Emily's going to show you an example of one later, so that'll be really fun. We also do custom data projects. So we kind of help people use data or think about data. And we'll go through some of those in the case studies today so that you all can start thinking about how you might use NDSC or kind of data more broadly to think about some of your work. We also do bi-monthly online free Zoom training. So the Zoom trainings that we do bi-monthly are sort of a more extended version of what we're doing today. So if you like what you see today, you're welcome to join one of those. Our next one is going to be in November. And then finally, we have a student training program. So we work with undergrad and graduate students at USC to clean up the data and kind of learn how to use data and do community informed research. And so if you're thinking about coming to USC Price or you have a family member or a friend, it's a really, really great program. I went through it. Emily went through it. It's just a really, really fun part of the job and the work that we do. Maybe we can go to the next slide. So this is a list of our network, or kind of a slide that shows our network and different partners that we've worked with on data stories or projects. There's sort of an inner rung that's kind of hard to see, but it's right around our logo. And that is our steering committee that meets a couple of times a year to kind of guide the data that we put up on the portal and really help us think about how we can use this tool to make good policy in LA County. So hopefully you see some organizations here that you're familiar with, and we'd love to add you into our network. Can we go ahead and go to the next slide? Great. So I want to take y'all through a case study and just kind of talk about a couple of examples of how we've used neighborhood data or used the data portal to help folks think about policy and kind of data for action. So this example is the Regional Recovery Hub, which is a project of the California Community Foundation. So as many of you probably know, many of you have probably worked on for some of the recent big challenges like the 2020 census and like COVID vaccination efforts, folks kind of opted to take a more regional approach to collective action around those big kind of events and problems. So if you want to go to the next slide. The California Community Foundation basically invested in 6 different regions of LA County that had really high numbers of either hard to count folks for the census or folks who were COVID vulnerable. And what they did is they invested $7 million in different organizations. So each region had a table with a head kind of regional lead that you can see the different regional leads here at the bottom of the screen. And what they did is they invested money in each of these regional leads and then kind of ceded power over to these different organizations so that they could convene a table of place-based nonprofits, and together they could decide how to invest that money and really spend those dollars in a way that would best align with their regional priorities, best align with the community, and help them kind of recover from COVID economically, health-wise, environmental-wise, just depending on what their priorities were. And so we worked with each of these regional lead organizations kind of as the data partner. We worked with them in their tables to help them think about how they can use data to either define their priorities, or if they already have a set of priorities defined, how they can help make the case for how to kind of invest in different projects in their region or get additional funding for these issues. So together with these organizations over a year and a half, we really kind of took a data-informed approach to trying to think about how we can invest this money in a way that helps these different regions recover from COVID-19. So I'll just take you through an example of one of these partners. So we've actually been working with the Acela Collaborative for a really long time, even before the CCF Regional Recovery Hub work. But for those who aren't familiar with Acela, it is a collaborative, so a convening organization in Southeast LA. And their catchment area is these eight cities and 2 unincorporated areas in Southeast LA, so 10 neighborhoods total. We actually started working with Acela way back in 2017 when NDSC first launched. We made them a community profile using NDSC data that really gave them an opportunity to view data for their region for the first time. So really thinking about what this 10 group of neighborhoods looks like as a region for the first time through that community profile. And they used that data to, a couple of years later in 2021, eventually launch the Acela Agenda, which really outlined from a data perspective, from a data-informed approach, what the different kind of priorities for their region were that they could invest in. So they came into the Regional Recovery Hub work with that agenda, kind of a regional picture of what their priorities were. And if you want to go to the next slide, I'll give an example of how we kind of built on that regional agenda to then kind of think about how we might invest this money in the Acela region. So they identified in the Acela Agenda a couple of different areas, kind of key areas that were priorities for them. One was health and environmental justice, one was civic engagement, and another was housing and economic development. So they kind of knew going in that those were some of the key areas that they wanted to focus in and kind of build projects around. And so what we did was we helped them kind of use data to look and think about where they might invest money and the types of projects that they might undertake. So we looked at home ownership rates in this area, and you can see from the overtime graph and from this regional picture, the home ownership rate in Acela is about 10% lower than the LA County average, which, as many of you guys know, is already pretty low to begin with. So again, this was kind of a topic regionally that they knew that they wanted to focus on. And then we use the NDSC map. So there's a screenshot here of the NDSC map to really think about taking that data from the region back down to the community level to think about which neighborhoods they really want to invest in homeownership education programs, different programs that could promote homeownership in this region, right? And so we looked at a couple of different neighborhoods. You can see by the shading here where the homeownership rate is particularly low. So in Vernon and Cudahy and Bell Gardens, thinking about maybe we want to start by investing programs in those communities rather than a place like Southgate or Linwood where the homeownership rate is actually higher than the regional average. Another way to think about it is what's happening in those communities. Is there anything that we can leverage, any other programs that we can leverage or things that are going well in those communities from a regional picture that we can think about using for some of these communities with lower homeownership rates. So I wanted to provide that example to kind of show you guys how we're using neighborhood data and neighborhood data for social change to both look at a picture regionally to kind of zoom out and then also zoom in and zoom out depending on whether you're setting regional priorities or trying to figure out exactly what neighborhoods to invest programs in. That is one way that we have kind of worked with these different organizations to help them think about how to invest money and how to recover from COVID-19. So at the end of this project, with each of the regional leads, we actually wrote a data story that kind of outlined the priorities that their tables selected for their region and wanted to focus on, and then also highlighted the work that they have been doing together. So I'm going to turn it back over to Emily to show y'all an example of one of the data stories that we did through the CCF Regional Recovery Hub, and so you guys can kind of get an idea of what a data story looks like.
Thanks so much, Shelley. So we'll kind of move into a data story just so you guys can get an example. These are really a cornerstone of the work we do at NDSC, kind of painting a narrative so people can better understand the data. Oftentimes when we're looking at numbers, it can be a little bit confusing, especially when you don't possess an advanced degree. This should be community accessible work that everyone's able to see. So these really help with that effort. So these stories kind of start with a regional overview. So we briefly share about the history of the region, and different things that make the region unique, an overview of demographics. This consists of race, ethnicity, population size. And then we move into highlighting a particular policy issue. So these kind of start at a 10,000-foot view and then narrow in. And then ultimately, the end goal here is to highlight the work of a specific community organization, to uplift the work they're doing in their community, and also to kind of disseminate findings because they know their community needs most intimately. So we'll just give you guys a brief example of one of these. I'll just pull that up. There's a bunch of these on our website, so feel free to peruse on your own time as well. But for this one, we're going to be looking at a data story we did under the Regional Recovery Hub in partnership with Centro Cha. This is an organization located in Long Beach. They're the largest Latino serving agency in the LA region. So what they kind of wanted to highlight was the adverse effects that COVID had on their community, especially relative East Long Beach relative to the southern area of Long Beach. There was a lot of discrepancies in employment outcomes, educational outcomes, and earnings, and then also in COVID infection rates. So we wanted to underscore this and then also use that as an opportunity to uplift some of the work they were doing to address those discrepancies. So like I mentioned previously, we just start with a brief overview. We really want to humanize the data. That's the point of these stories, to let people know that there is a neighborhood, there is a community behind these numbers. So that's kind of where we start. And then we'll also move into, then, like I said, highlighting the policy issues. So here, kind of the cornerstone of that was a tale of two cities. So the 11 zip codes that comprise Long Beach, 6 of them so some of them in suburban East Long Beach have highest life expectancy, but then you move to the southern southwest region of Long Beach, that consists of 6 zip codes, and you see that there's vastly different outcomes. So that's kind of what we're underscoring here. Another really huge value add to these stories is that we get to use data visualizations to help the data be more easily digestible. So here we're highlighting the regions in which Centro Cha's work is heavily concentrated. And then we move into, like I said, kind of narrowing in on these issues. So here we're looking at the top industries that employ residents in Centro Cha. So this is really interesting. As you can see, the largest sector of employment is in the accommodation and food service industries. Relative to the other regions of Long Beach, those are oftentimes health and administration, healthcare related fields. So this is just an interesting thing to kind of look at relative to. Another thing we want to highlight, the discrepancy in race and earnings among ethnicities, right? So when you're looking at median earnings, non-Hispanic white men, significantly higher, and then on the opposite end, you have Hispanic women. So once again, kind of underscoring why these COVID infection rates had such a detrimental toll on this community. Similarly, here we highlight environment and health. And then we also want to use this as an opportunity to let people look at this region relative to the suburban East Long Beach region. So we kind of highlighted tree canopy. As you can see, there's a lot less green coverage in this area. A fun feature of this is that it makes the CalEnviro, we use this data from the LMU, the canopy tree map. So basically here what you're seeing is it's just kind of making it more digestible when you hover. And then, yeah, we kind of wrap this up with an overview of Centro Cha's work. So kind of uplifting that. It presents a really great opportunity for them to use to disseminate more publicly their work to their community members and also to other organizations who might see opportunities for collaboration. And with that, I will pass it back over to Ellie.
That was awesome, Em. I think we're running like not short on time, but let's just go ahead and get into the training rather than slides back up. I think if we want to just pull up the NDSC map. For those who are on the Zoom, I just dropped the link to our kind of main website in the chat, but I will also drop a link to our map as well so that you can follow along if you want to do that. So this is what the map looks like when you pull it up. What we're looking at right now is the 272 neighborhoods in LA County as defined by the Los Angeles Times. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with the LA Times mapping project. It probably came out about 7 or 8 years ago, but they took this really community engaged process in kind of drawing neighborhood boundaries for Los Angeles. And so we felt like those were kind of the best reflected. We went through a really long process about talking about what the neighborhood boundaries are going to be, and these are the ones we landed on. If you don't like the way that LA Times defines your neighborhood, we can also show you how to create your own neighborhood in just a few minutes. So I'll just kind of talk about what we're seeing on the map here real quick. So what we're looking at right now is total population, that data set. You can see that is kind of reflected in the legend. And the way to read the map on NDSC is that a lighter shade means less of something. So a lighter shade in this case means that there's less folks living in that neighborhood. You can see that Long Beach all the way at the bottom is the darkest color. And that means that there is, the most folks living in Long Beach, right? Like that's the most populous neighborhood. So I just wanted to say that up front that the colors on the NDSC map are not a value judgment of good or bad. It just kind of means less or more. And so you can see M here is kind of hovering over some different neighborhoods on the map, and you can see it'll pull up a number for you. If you just hover over it, that tells you the number of folks in that neighborhood. So I'll just take you through a couple other features on the map. If you don't want to look at neighborhoods, we also have a couple of other geography options. So you can look at data at the census tract level, which is much more granular. If you just click this button over here to the left that M is hovering over. And then we also have a cities layer. So for folks working in local government, we have the 88 cities as well that you can kind of explore data on. Does anybody have any questions so far?
If anybody has questions, feel free to unmute your mic and speak directly in.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
It looks like maybe we're reloading the map here.
Sorry, I do have a question. I was just trying to get my microphone to turn on.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any plans to increase the study area to cover the whole SCAG region, or is it planned to stay as LA County?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So our general kind of approach is that these types of portals are really only useful if folks are using them right. And I think it's really, really helpful for the data provider to be local. Like we take the show on the road all the time around LA County, and I think it's really helpful to have USC as a local partner. We did, for a brief period of time, have a neighborhood data for social change in the Coachella Valley. And it was difficult because USC is not based there, even though we did have a local partner. So our answer is kind of like, I don't know if we'll really plan to launch. Certainly it would take a deep partnership if we were to kind of expand the work to other counties, and definitely something that we're always open to discussing. But I do think we need a real hyper local data partner who's kind of invested in the work and spreading the word about the portal.
Yes, so you did mention, I think Emily in her presentation mentioned Calenviro screen. So how does this similar, dissimilar? Does it have a different data source? What for some of the other data sets that we use, how would this be different, unique?
That's awesome. That's a great question. So let's take a look over. If you scroll on the menu on the left, you can see we have 10 different policy areas here. So demography, education, employment, and basically NDSC is sort of a convener of a bunch of different data sets. So you can see M is hovering over the Calenviro screen, or the environmental policy area here. And we do have a lot of Calenviro screen data plus kind of more, right? So we've made our own green coverage data set. We have tree canopy cover, oil well locations. One way to kind of think about NDSC is it's sort of pulling data from a bunch of different sources and putting it into a real easy to use format. I think another thing that's kind of beneficial about NDSC is that it gives you the data at the neighborhood level. The Calenviro screen does census tracts, but if you want data kind of readily available at the city level or at the neighborhood level, I think NDSC is a great tool for that. So you can see M has just selected tree canopy cover, and so you can kind of see by city which kind of cities by the shading on the map have different levels of tree canopy cover. Maybe we can move to show just a little bit of maybe housing data. Maybe let's look at rent burden. Great. I'll just show you guys a couple of other features on the map here. So, Em, if you want to click on a neighborhood or a city, that's great. So once you have a neighborhood or a city selected, you can head on over to the data tab and see a lot of really, really helpful information about this data set. So it gives you the data source up at the top. So the share of folks who are paying more than 50% of their income on rent and utilities. We're looking at severe rent burden. It also gives you the source of that data. And if you click that kind of learn more link up at the top there, it'll take you to a page that gives you a whole bunch of information. You can kind of download the data. Emma's also hovering here over this really great data trend. So you can see how the neighborhood that we have selected, the city we have selected, Carson, compares to the LA County average over times in terms of severe rent burden. So kind of looking at this data set from 2010 to 2022, kind of seeing how that neighborhood compares. Another really great feature, if you select more than one city at a time, so if you want to kind of build a regional picture like we were talking about with Sella, something that the NDSC map does that is really cool is it automatically aggregates the data for all of the kind of neighborhoods or census tracts, whatever layer you on that you have selected. So you can see here, this black line is kind of showing the aggregated sort of average of these neighborhoods. And you can see next to this black dot, 28%. So what this is saying is the year that we're on, 2016, 28% of folks across Carson, Long Beach, and Lakewood were severely rent burdened. And you can see that that is just a little bit lower than the LA County average. So I think another thing that NDSC does really well is just really quickly aggregates a bunch of data for you if you're trying to get a regional picture of something, or you have like a funky shaped neighborhood and you want to kind of build a bunch of census tracts together. It just makes data really, really easy to aggregate.
Hey, Ellie, we have a question in the
yes.
chat from Peter Cohen. Do you have a data set that shows average income and change over time by neighborhood?
That is a great question. So if you go to employment and income, we do have median household income as well as median earnings. So if you just want to click, on one of those data sets, and maybe we could go back to the neighborhood layer, Em. Again, which is just up in the top left menu here. So you can click on any neighborhood and maybe we can show them how to use the search function. So there's a couple different ways. You can search by address. If you don't know what neighborhood you live in, you can kind of type in an address and that'll bring up a point on the neighborhood. So that is one way to do it. You can sort of search that way. Also, okay, Em, if you clear the search and then you click the down button in the search, it'll also allow you to search by neighborhood name. So if you wanted to search for Koreatown that way, also you could, and it would select the neighborhood for you. So basically you can grab any neighborhood, and if we go back over to the data tab, you'll be able to see the kind of average change in that neighborhood over time compared to LA County. And I always love looking at the median income data set because the county average just skyrockets so much. And that's just not the case for a lot of neighborhoods. I just think it's a really, really stark case where you can really kind of see what's happening here over the last, several years. So that is average income. I have a couple more features that I could show y'all. I wonder if we have any other questions about specific data sets. We have a lot of great data sets here, again, from the ACS across the Department of Education, just a lot of different stuff here.
Yeah, Ellie, we have one question.
Thank you
Great.
so much. I was wondering if I know, Allie, you alluded to being able to build kind of your own neighborhoods or your own boundaries. I have a couple of questions about that. Excuse me, I was wondering if those, if you do that work, are you able to save that or share that publicly? A little bit of context or background. I work for the City of Los Angeles's Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, and we support and oversee the 99 neighborhood councils that make up the neighborhood council level of government in the City of Los Angeles. And based on a quick scan of your maps, some of the neighborhood boundaries are aligned, but many of them are not to the neighborhood council boundaries. And I would imagine that this tool would be infinitely valuable to our neighborhood councils, both the individual councils and our office at large, but having to build those 99 neighborhoods anytime we wanted to use the data set, I imagine would also be fairly inhibitive. So I'm wondering if you do work to build your own neighborhoods or build your own boundaries, can that be saved? Can that be shared? Can that be exported or embedded anywhere to make this data as responsive to the community as I would love for it to be for my own work?
That is a great question. Okay, let's just select a couple of neighborhoods and we'll just kind of build a little mini case here. So Emma just selected a couple neighborhoods here in central LA. So first thing, if you want to share this link with your neighborhood selected, you go to the 3 lines in the top right-hand corner and you select share, and it'll give you a link to copy. If you just select that button there, that will, if you just copy this link and then you paste it into your browser, you send it to a colleague, like that's kind of one way that you can share the map with whatever you have selected. So it'll keep your neighborhoods, it'll keep your data set, your year, all of that type of stuff. Another feature that we have, if you click that login button there, when you have a neighborhood selected, it allows you to create a login, and we might not be able to see it because it's a pop-up, but basically you can log in like with your Google account, and then that will allow you to save a neighborhood and, oh, there it is, great. So if you can log in with any number of these things, it'll allow you to save a neighborhood. And when you log back in, you can come back to your saved neighborhood. So I think that could be really valuable for y'all if you want to build your council districts out of census tracts or something like that and save them. They can be really easily accessible in a saved neighborhood, either by an organization account or, just your individual account.
Any other questions in the room or online? Go ahead.
Here we go. Thanks for the presentation. On the custom boundaries question, is census tract the lowest level of resolution, or can you draw other custom boundaries or go to the census block group level?
Great question. Census tracts is the lowest that we go. A lot of that is because we are trying to do all of LA County, and just thinking about kind of like margins of error, for example, in ACS data, we just kind of felt like that was the lowest level we could go, where we could have this wide variety of data sets at the county level that wasn't going to be like kind of problematic to present in some way.
Hi, I was wondering how inflation is captured in here. Like, are historical medians and dollar figures adjusted for inflation to present day value, or?
Great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So that is the type of information that you can find on the Learn More pages, but I'll just answer it for you here. You can see in the definition that it says measured in 2022 dollars. So basically, whatever the latest year of the data set is, we have adjusted for inflation to that year. So it's sort of accounted for in this data set. So even the 2010, data on this map is presented in 2022 dollars.
Thank you.
Hey, Ellie, it's Isabel from SCAG. I'm wondering what some of the use cases are that you use this platform for, just to reference some with your CBO partners. That'd be great to hear, like high level.
Totally. So I think a lot of folks use this data portal for like grant making. Folks are using it for kind of program planning. So down at the census tract level, like looking at, which kind of community or census tracts they might want to plan a particular program in. I think, folks are really thinking a lot about where to invest dollars and how to fundraise for their communities using this tool. We are the research and data partner for the Promise Zone, who use this information to kind of track their progress. Slate Z, the South LA Transit Empowerment Zone, who are using this data to think about neighborhood conditions and kind of track their progress. And And again, a lot of the work that we do with folks is helping them think about how to use neighborhood data for whatever work they want to do. So trying to be thought partners with folks as well. And maybe we could show the Community Development Index. You want to pop over to that tab? This was in our slideshow, but I wasn't sure if we were going to have time for it. This is a project that we did with CRCD for their South LA All In initiative. We took some of the data that we have on NDSC. So one of the things that folks are always asking about is whether or not you can layer data sets, which is not a feature that we have. But they had a couple of different priorities in this initiative. And so what we did is we took some of the neighborhood data and sort of layered it on top of each other to create an index. So they cared a lot about housing, education, jobs, and capital, access to capital. And so if you hover over the map here, you can see we've kind of zipped up this score to help folks think about kind of around the Olympics, which neighborhoods are most in need of investment. And you can kind of see across these different areas sort of like what the score is. So that's another way that we've kind of been using this neighborhood data. And then if you scroll down on the page just a little bit more, you can see the individual areas. So in terms of housing stability and affordability, you can see the different metrics that went into these scores at the neighborhood level too. So I think, yeah, folks are really thinking a lot about how to invest in neighborhoods, using our data, and it's really fun to work with folks. Feel free to reach out to Em or I, if you have a data question, you want to just chat about data. We're the biggest data nerds and we love it.
So we have a few more questions in the chat. The first is from Joan Ling. Is the 83,411 median or average? I believe it's from the page we were on before. It is described in both ways in different parts of the screen, and the same thing for the neighborhood in question.
Great question. So the data set itself is median income, and we are averaging it across neighborhoods though. So I know this is kind of like a silly answer, but it's sort of like the median income is the data set. And then if we're looking at the neighborhood level, we're sort of averaging it across neighborhoods.
Thank you. And then one more question from Mike. Any plan to add some form of vehicle miles traveled metric under the transportation category?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we have sort of commute time data set from the American Community Survey, but I've actually never, Mike, heard about vehicle miles of travel kind of specifically. I wonder if you know of a data source for that data, if you want to say a little bit more about it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah,
Hi,
go
this
ahead.
is Mike. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. One of the probably most significant things in California has been, I think it was Senate Bill 743, which changed CEQA law to the point where level of service is no longer important, but vehicle miles of travel becomes like the most critical metric for transportation. It's a different way just basically to measure travel. And the state has guidelines about looking at it in context of like vehicle miles of travel per capita, per resident, and per employee. And that would be something that would be under consideration for any kind of development project that has to go through an environmental impact report. I mean, that's just for some background context. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, super interesting. So I think what I'll say is if the data is available at the census tract or lower level, we're always adding new data to NDSC. And I'm just going to drop this feedback form in the chat that you can let us know if there's a data set that you want that you don't see. We're always checking this feedback form and kind of adding data based on what folks are asking for if it's available. So certainly, if we can find that data at the tract level or, kind of a lower level of geography, we'd be happy to add it to the site.
That's great. The best source is probably a travel demand model by either LA Metro or SCAG.
Great.
Any other questions in the chat and in the room? Great. Well, then I think we can wrap up this roundtable. I want to thank you all for attending today's USC Neighborhood Data for Social Change platform roundtable. Give a round of applause to our presenters. And then after this, you will be receiving an email from SCAG to complete a post-event survey, and it's going to be linked again in our thank you email. We appreciate you so much for coming out today, and thank you for attending this roundtable.
Thanks so much, folks.